you could say that this stone that we were talking about in Auxonne province in France, that once it was removed, as it were taking away the stratum of argillaceous sand, which separated the 11th bed, from the 12th, they found stumps of columns and fragments of stone that were half wrought, and that the stone was exactly similar to that of the quarry, but that they found, moreover, coins, handles of hammers, and other tools and fragments of tools in the wood. I think that if anyone is interested, of course, you can read all the literature of that exists to find quite a bit of information, and there's a beautiful work called Forbidden Archaeology, which people could avail themselves of to learn a little more about this. But for instance, like the letters in the marble block in Philadelphia, it was, I think it was 1830 that these letter shapes were discovered. But it was discovered in a solid block of marble, and it was from a quarry 12 miles northwest of Philadelphia. But the marble block was taken from a depth of around 60 to 70 feet. When the quarry workers removed layers of mica and slate and hornblende and talcose and slate, a primitive, beautiful clay slate, before coming to a layer of which the block contained and was contained in, and the letters like shapes were cut into the block. And where you find symmetry like this, and you find letters and things, that's absolute evidence that humans had to have done that. But while they were sawing through the block, the workmen happened to notice the rectangular sort of indentation, about 1.5 sort of inches wide by about 0.625 inches high, and they were displaying two raised characters. Most people that are writing about our evolution, especially in terms of what we should eat and things, kind of not really thought about things in terms of our roots, and that in somatotyping, of course, our digestive tract fits exactly more into a frugivore's, and certainly evidence shows that a lot of our ancient civilization things, we had a beautiful civilization of people that lived in the Pacific during Lemurian time, and of course there was a great deep abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables and things of this nature. And there's lots of evidence around the world of people who could have easily eaten flesh, but they didn't. And that, for instance, like the Adirondack Indians. Apart from our digestive tract having an acid pH of 1, which more of a vegetarian animal does, and a carnivorous and omnivorous animal has a slightly higher pH. Carnivorous animals' pH of their acid is at 4, and we don't really have much ability for our omnivorousness. And then evidence of this is shown because when we look at the amount of phosphorus to calcium, the calcium to phosphorus ratio in live food is 5 parts of calcium to 2 parts phosphate. And when we consume foods which were not of our ancient architect's design, we end up with excess phosphate and things in our body. And at Penn State University, researchers saw that mucorracemiosis, which is a pleomorphic organism that makes up our vascularization of our body, that we're found in a very high glucose and inorganic salt sort of media, there's an excess of calcium phosphate. And that mucorracematosis is a mold that ends up as a fungus, and it ends up accumulating more than 5 to 6% more phosphorus on its dry weight basis in its mycelium, which the mycelium is the root-like structure that this yeast and mold and fungus organism ends up growing from our connective tissue and the growing from the material substrate of our body, and it can be approximately 58% of this phosphorus was in the form more of an inorganic polyphosphate, and the mycelial roots cause all of that phosphate to become connected and deposited in that area. And calcium phosphate buildup is something which doubles in modern humans' body every year that passes by past the age of 2. Calcium phosphate buildup is, and evidence to show that we should have a diet of only 2 parts phosphate to 5 calcium, which that's pretty much what live food is. Mother's milk, despite what she eats, the milk for the little one has a ratio of close to 5 parts of calcium to 2 parts phosphate. And wherever in the world people eating grains and beans, which we never ate and cannot grow on the earth themselves, but have come about as a result of selection, agricultural selection, where people are eating those foods, which in some areas, of course, that's the staple, isn't it? People talk about bread being the staple of life, and others where beans have come to be talk about the bean as being the staple of life. These foods are so full of these phosphates, way over the top. They can have 40, 60 times more phosphate to calcium, and then when people get into the realm of eating flesh, it could be a couple hundred times more phosphate to what there is of calcium. And